February wrap-up. I read a lot of great books in the month of February, and a lot of different kinds of books. I feel like I read memoirs, essays, fiction, young adult, poetry, kind of the whole spectrum. So February was a fantastic reading month, and I'm just gonna jump into some of the books that I read. The Body Myth. This was kindly sent to me by Unnamed Press, and they are one of my favorite publishers. They're one of my favorite publishers. I feel like they publish a lot of different unique kind of reads, and this one was no different. This was a really interesting book because you got a lot of different diversity in this book, both in a cultural sense, but also in a relationship sense and in a medical sense, I felt. Sarah, one of the main characters in the book, is sick and seems to have a lot of different symptoms and ailments, and her partner, Raheel, is really the primary person that takes care of her. Mira is the character that enters the book. These are our three main characters throughout the whole book, and a relationship forms between the three of them in a lot of different capacities, and it all kind of centers around this intrigue of what is wrong with Sarah. So you really get a lot of exploration of relationships, of the medical field, and the different approaches to all of those things from the different perspectives of these three people. The book is also set in India, so there's a whole different context with that as well. I really enjoyed this book. I know I rated it really high. I think it was either 4.5 or 5 stars, and I feel like it's not on enough people's radar, so I wanted to bring attention to it because I really enjoyed it. It just came out in February on the 26th, I believe, and I highly recommend giving this one a look, especially if any of those topics are intriguing to you. They did a really great job covering those topics. The Nowhere Girls. How I wanted to read this book so much, and hyped it quite a lot. I did really enjoy this book, and it feels really important to me to share some of the realness that I experienced in this book. I think while I have a few different things that were troublesome to me about this book, they are listed in my Goodreads review. I talked to my friend Cassie about this a lot, and really the biggest thing that was troubling to me was that there are so many different realms of diversity in this book that it felt like if you had a checklist laid out of what does it mean to be a diverse book, that this book was just trying to really quickly go through all those check marks. So you're really missing the depth of any type of diversity just because it was so like briefly mentioned, or it felt like it was just kind of like offhandedly put in there as like a look at how diverse this book is kind of thing. That was a little icky feeling to me, especially because the book heavily leans into the topic of sexual assault and rape. What's really cool about this book is that it has a whole group of females that come together to stop this from happening at their school and really call attention to what is going on. And to me, I'm like, that is badass. Where were the Nowhere Girls? That's what they call themselves, the Nowhere Girls. Where were they when I was in high school? Like, this book is badass in that realm. Also, because this is catered to a younger audience, I want to make sure that there's a little bit of intention when reading this book, just because I found myself getting really swept up in that message, and it's also really important to call out when some things just aren't exactly right. Also, this book could have gone into much more depth with the character Erin, and I would have loved it at least a half a star more. So Dear Martin has such a soft place in my soul now. This book may seem little, but it is mighty in its message. This book follows the main character, Justice, who is a really high-performing student and is really just seeking the most out of his life, and unfortunately is pulled into an incident that is really traumatic and troubling, and experiences a great deal of racism at his school. Because he is so high performing, he often gets deemed as like a student that benefits from affirmative action and things like that, where to me, this is a really important book for young people to be reading because it touches on all of those topics. And I don't really want to give it all away because I didn't know all that I was really in for in reading this book. And there are significant events that happen that I feel like have a really big impact on you when you don't know about it. And it's very real. I would love to see something like this be required in schools, especially because of the high prevalence of everything that goes on in this book. So highly recommend this one. It's so, I mean, it's really inexpensive and it's such a quick read. It packs a huge punch and I highly recommend you read it. I also listened to the audiobook Loving versus Virginia this month, which is a book that I've been wanting to read for a really long time. And to me, I felt like the audiobook did a really great job covering the case and the historical context of the case. And it was such a quick listen that while I would have liked to have had the physical book, this also really served a great purpose for me this month. So I was really grateful to have read that this month too. Next book I read, I passed along already in a giveaway, but it was We Cast a Shadow. This was a really hard book for me. I feel like I don't read a lot of satire, so it was hard for me to get into that mindset, and it's just like such a heartbreaking story. I feel like some of the biggest things to know is that this is set in the future South, and there is a process of demelanization that's available to make your skin lighter. And throughout the book, there is a father and son. The father, who identifies as black, is really hopeful that his son will go through the demelanization process, and puts him through so many different traumatic and painful things that you can like feel throughout the book. And I know it's a satire, and I know, like, I get it, and it was just like heartbreaking, and that's also the point as well, I think. But I just found myself really feeling for Nigel throughout the book, and his dad. I feel like there's a lot of heavy in this book, and it felt pretty important. I did struggle a bit because there was a lot in between that felt really like unnecessary to make the book longer, and it kind of just like dragged a little bit for me, where like really significant events happen, but there's a lot in between that I'm like, we could have cut a little bit of that out. So I'm just being honest, that was a little bit harder for me to get through. The next book I listened to was Leah On The Offbeat, and I also was trying to wait for the physical copy of this as well, and because it was available on Hoopla, I like couldn't resist, and don't regret it whatsoever. Having watched the movie Love, Simon, I feel like whether I wanted to or not, I have a picture of these characters in my head now, and it was really nice to hear their voices come to life through Shannon Purser's narration, and it was really nice to have available to me like while I was cooking dinner and things like that. The story carries on in a really great way. There were times that I found myself questioning, like, do I like Leah? Do I like want to know this whole story? I'm not sure. And I feel like that was a really important thing for me to recognize in myself, because like, where does that come from and why was I feeling that way? And I really loved the book as a whole. So to me, there's a lot of important thought processes to reflect on from this book, and I think it's a really great book for young readers. I'm excited that I get to talk about I Miss You and I Blink, because this collection of essays was so wonderful to read this month. I was really trying to wait till April. It comes out on April 2nd. So I was really trying to like wait closer to the date that it is released, and I just couldn't. Like, I read the first essay and was like, oh, we're about to be friends is how I feel. So to me, this reading experience leaves you feeling like you walked away with a friend, and what more beautiful experience is there? The stories felt really real, really raw, had great humor. I feel like everything you're hoping for out of a collection of essays, this book delivered. So 5 out of 5 for me, easy. I also read 2 poetry collections this month, and they were Please Don't Go Before I Get Better. This was kindly sent to me by Gallery Books a long time ago, and I've been reading it for too long. I also read the collection Helium by Rudy Francisco, and this is so special to me. I feel like I have a very complicated relationship with poetry from different experiences in my life and things like that. I wrote about it on my WordPress. It's down below. It's mostly just like me processing what is going on in my head when I read poetry. What's great about this one is that to me, like, this covers a lot of content that I have needed like throughout my life, and I really valued that. It felt like a really validating experience. This collection I feel like is important to poetry overall. I've seen Rudy Francisco perform in person and on YouTube, and his poetry is just stunning and fantastic and breathtaking and all of the great things. To have all of these put together in a collection feels really special, and he doesn't create many collections, and so this one I feel like holds a lot of the ones that I have found to be really profound to me, and I'm really grateful that I have it. My sister got it for me for, I think, Christmas or my birthday, I'm not sure, but one of the greatest gifts ever, for sure. And the last but certainly not least book I read in February was Long Live the Tribe of Fatherless Girls. I read this book on NetGalley, and the day it released, I needed to own it immediately. One, it's beautiful, and two, one of the greatest memoirs that I've read in a while. I feel like T does a really great job going through her life experiences and giving you all of the realness. I feel like this covers so many different topics that T has been throughout her life, and that ranges from alcoholism within her family, really traumatic relationships she's been in, sexual assault she's experienced, her own struggles with drugs and alcohol, and really, like, to me the overarching theme is like identity development as a whole, which is 1000% always what I want to read. But really, like, I walked away from this feeling like I just like knew and understood more about people, and like wanting to meet T as a person. I feel like there's a lot of memoirs out there that I love. That's like my preferred genre, 1000%. And there's like a certain giving your full self into a story that you can feel as the reader, and T definitely does that. And I feel like if you read any memoir so far this year, it better be this one. Those are all the books I read in the month of February. I would love to know if you've read any of these as well, or if you're planning to, or if you're curious about any of them. Please let me know down below. All of my social and all of that is down below. Any publishers I mentioned or books I mentioned will be listed as well. And that's all I've got. That's all there is for February. Sorry it took so long. Wrap-ups are hard. They're hard. You have to think about all you read and all your feelings. I'm okay, I swear. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.